The morning sky over Lyceum Airfield, March 1945, flickered with a strange, shimmering haze, like heat rising from desert sand. It was cold, but the air trembled as if touched by something unnatural, something faster than the wind itself. Mechanics in heavy coats squinted upward, hearing the faint whistle long before they saw anything. Then it came, an emerald blur slicing through the clouds, leaving a thin white claw mark across the heavens. The Messerschmitt Me 163 Komet, the only operational rocket-powered fighter in history, swept across the airstrip with a sound like ripping metal and thunder compressed into a single scream. Soldiers stared stunned. Some cheered. Some ducked. No one truly understood what they were witnessing. In that moment, a contradiction flashed across the sky. The Germans, losing the war on every front, had built the fastest fighter aircraft the world had ever seen. A machine capable of climbing faster than gravity seemed willing to allow. A machine that could outrun every Allied interceptor. A machine whose speed was both its greatest triumph and its fatal flaw. It was a paradox that defined the final year of the war. The nation collapsing fastest produced the aircraft that flew fastest. But the Me-163 was not alone in this race for supremacy. Across the skies of Europe and the Pacific, a silent contest unfolded. One not of territory, not of ideology, but of speed. Speed became a weapon. Speed became a shield. Speed became the dream of engineers on both sides who believed that whoever mastered velocity would master the future of warfare. The Americans pushed their P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang to the limits, diving at speeds that bent wings and shattered windshields. The British Spitfire pilots whispered of dives so steep the sky turned black. And behind concrete bunkers in Bavaria, German scientists sketched impossible designs. Swept wings, rocket engines, turbojets, seeds of machines that looked more like the future than the present. But the race was never simple. For every commander who saw speed as salvation, another feared it as temptation. Some believed faster planes would end the war sooner. Others believed they would only accelerate destruction. Engineers fought physics, pilots fought terror, nations fought time itself. The tension of this story is born from a universal misconception. Most people believe World War II was won by firepower. In reality, it was increasingly won by speed. Speed determined who struck first. Speed determined who survived. Speed determined whose technology would shape the next age of flight. And yet, the struggle to master speed revealed a deeper conflict. A philosophical clash between innovation and desperation, between vision and necessity. The Germans sought a miracle to reverse their collapse. The Allies sought an advantage to ensure victory. Both sides believed they were racing toward salvation. Neither fully realized they were racing toward a new era of warfare entirely. From the plains of Kansas to the factories of Hamburg, from the skies over Normandy to the mountains of Austria, this contest played out in metal, fire, and the unbearable pressure of velocity. The physical world resisted human ambition, punishing pilots who dared fly too fast with shattered engines, collapsed wings, and bodies bruised from G-forces that no human was meant to endure. It is a story not simply of machines but of the men who flew them, pilots who described dives where winds screamed like demons, engines roared like gods, and the world blurred into a tunnel of terror and triumph. It is a story of the engineers who imagined aircraft that could outrun fate itself. And it is a story of nations discovering that the sky, once a realm of heroes, had become a proving ground for the next phase of human civilization. This documentary follows that race. The pursuit of speed, the invention that rewrote history, and the aircraft that, for a brief moment, became the fastest things humans had ever built. Because in the end, the answer to the question, who was the master of speed? Reveals more than just a number on an airspeed indicator. It reveals the truth about human ambition, about the cost of innovation, and about the moment when the world realized that the future would belong not to the strongest or bravest, but to the swiftest. Act I, build up. The world before speed. Before the world knew jets, rockets, or compressibility, the sky of the late 1930s was a place of limits. Fighters like the Bf-109 Hawker Hurricane and P-40 Warhawk cruised at speeds that felt astonishing, 300, maybe 350 miles per hour. Engineers believed the air itself would tear apart any plane that tried to go much faster. Pilots whispered of a mysterious barrier, where controls froze and wings buckled. This was the state of aviation when World War II began. The German Luftwaffe entered the war with confidence. Their Bf-109 was among the fastest aircraft on Earth. But even then, the seeds of an arms race had begun. Every month brought new reports. British Spitfires testing higher speeds. American Allison engines being upgraded. Soviet Yak fighters emerging with improved climbing power. War accelerates innovation like nothing else. By 1941, the sky had become a laboratory. But the edges of possibility were dangerous. Pilots reported wings trembling violently during dives. Some felt their aircraft suddenly roll, flip, or lose control, all symptoms of approaching the sound barrier, a phenomenon almost entirely unknown to the pilots risking their lives in its grip. Germany, however, had something no one else did. Dr. Alexander Lippisch, an aerodynamic visionary obsessed with swept wings, tailless aircraft, and rocket propulsion. His concepts looked alien. Triangular wings, needle noses, fuel tanks filled with chemicals that could melt skin. The German High Command, desperate for any advantage, approved his work. Meanwhile, the Allies focused on quantity over innovation. American factories produced fighters by the thousands. The British refined their Merlin engines. The Soviets built rugged aircraft that could survive harsh climates. Their strategy was straightforward: overwhelm the enemy. But technology was evolving faster than tactics. As 1943 arrived, the world entered a phase of the war rarely discussed. The fight not just for altitude, firepower, or maneuverability, but for straight-line, mind-bending, physics-defying speed. Germany bet everything on breakthroughs. The Allies bet on reliability. Both believed they were right. Neither understood how radically the battlefield was about to change. Act 2, Turning Point, the machines that defied limits. The Me-163 Komet, the rocket demon. No aircraft symbolized the German obsession more than the Me-163. Top speed, 700 miles per hour. Climb rate, 16,000 feet per minute. Fuel, a volatile mix of T-stuff and C-stuff that could dissolve metal. Engine, Walter HWK 109-509 rocket motor. The Komet didn't fly, it lunged into the sky like a bullet escaping Earth. Pilots were told, "You will fire your engine for 3 minutes. You will ascend like no other aircraft. And then you will glide home, unpowered, vulnerable, a falcon without talons." It was the fastest fighter ever built during World War II. Yet it claimed more German lives through accidents than it ever claimed Allied bombers. Speed was a gift. Speed was a curse. Speed was a weapon none could fully control. The Me-262, the first jet fighter. If the Me-163 was a meteor, the Me-262 Schwalbe was a prophecy. Speed, 540 miles per hour. Twin turbojets. Swept wings. Heavy armament. It could outrun Mustangs, outclimb Thunderbolts, and strike with devastating effect. Allied intelligence reports were frantic. If mass-produced, this aircraft could threaten the entire bombing campaign. But the Me-262 came too late. Jet engines failed constantly. Fuel shortages crippled operations. Politics slowed deployment. The master of speed existed. But Germany no longer had the time. The Allies fight back, pushing physics. While Germany experimented with the future, the Allies pushed the present to its absolute limits. P-51 Mustang, the long-range speed king. In dives, Mustangs reached 600+ mph, flirting with compressibility. Pilots reported the stick locking, the aircraft shaking violently as they approached the unknown terrain below Mach 1. P-47 Thunderbolt, the juggernaut. The P-47's sheer weight allowed it to dive faster than almost anything in the sky. Some pilots clocked dives of 700 miles per hour, though the readings were unreliable. Spitfire Mk-14, the British Comet. The Griffin engine Spitfire tore across the sky with astonishing acceleration. British engineers documented speeds nearing 470 miles per hour, unthinkable in 1939. The Allies didn't need experimental aircraft. They weaponized what they had. Act 3, Confrontation. Reports from the edge of speed. Combat reports reveal the tension. U.S. pilot, 1944. The Mustang shook as if possessed. "I thought the wings would rip off, but suddenly the nose dropped and she broke through. Smooth as silk." German Komet pilot diary entry. "The earth fell away like someone was pulling it down with a rope." British engineer. "We are reaching speeds not meant for propellers. The air becomes an enemy." These were not just technical notes. They were letters from soldiers confronting the limits of physics. Act 4, Human element, the cost of speed. A Komet pilot burned alive after fuel leaked. A Mustang pilot blacked out in a dive. A P-47's wings bent so far they never recovered shape. A Me-262 crew chief wept as another jet combusted on takeoff. Technology advanced. Human bodies struggled to follow. Act V, Consequences. Who was the master of speed? By 1945, one truth was clear. The fastest fighter of World War II was the Me-163 Komet. No aircraft matched its raw velocity. But mastery? That was different. The Me-163 was uncontrollable. The Me-262 arrived too late. The Allies never built a fighter faster than a German jet, but they built fighters that won the war. When counting speed alone, the Germans won. When counting mastery, the Allies did. Act 6, Reflection. A new age begins. The race for speed did not end with the war. It began the jet age, the space age, and the era of supersonic flight. The P-80 Shooting Star, the MiG-15, the F-86 Sabre, all were children of this race. The battle for speed shaped the modern world. In the years after the war, the world looked back at the race for speed with mixed awe and fear. What began as a struggle to dominate the skies had evolved into something far greater, a battle for the future of flight itself. The Me-163 and Me-262 were technological marvels, but they were also warnings. They showed that innovation born in desperation carries as much danger as promise. Speed offered victory, but it also demanded sacrifice. Of pilots, of stability, of nations straining to outrun defeat. Yet the Allies, through endurance and adaptability, found their own path. They mastered not the fastest aircraft but the most effective. They learned that speed alone cannot win a war. Strategy, logistics, and human resilience matter more than a single miracle weapon. Still, the legacy of the race is undeniable. After 1945, the British used German aerodynamic data to design the de Havilland Vampire and later the Hawker Hunter. America's jet programs advanced rapidly, leading to the Bell X-1, the first aircraft to break the sound barrier. The Soviets captured German engineers and wind tunnels, accelerating their own jet efforts. Ironically, the defeated shaped the future more than they intended. The victors carried hidden costs. Pilots haunted by compressibility dives, engineers questioning the morality of pushing machines beyond human tolerance. One image stays with us. The Me-163 streaking across the sky like a comet, brilliant and doomed. It symbolizes the eternal paradox of speed. The faster we go, the more we risk losing control. And so we end with a truth that echoes across the decades. In war, the swiftest machine may win the moment. But in history, the master of speed is the one who understands its cost. For the world learned in World War II that speed is not only power, it is destiny. And those who chase it must be prepared to confront the future it brings.